Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here at the Paris Air Show, the historic Le Bourget Airfield outside the French capital, where we're going to be covering this great air show through the week. Our coverage here is sponsored by L3 Technologies and Leonardo DRS, and we've got with us retired Italian Air Force Colonel Quirino Bucci, who is a test pilot with Leonardo aircraft. Sir, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Vago.
One of the new products that Leonardo has unveiled here is the M-345, in some ways derived from an older generation of aircraft, but we talked to Filippo Bagnato, who is the managing director of Leonardo Aircraft, and said that, look, by the time you redo the whole thing, it becomes a new aircraft, even if it looks like some of the older generation airplanes. But from the standpoint as a test pilot, as a pilot, who's flown everything from things with propellers to the AMX, the F-16, F-18, the Tornado, all the way over to the Eurofighter, which you've got a lot of experience in as well. Talk to us where this aircraft, it's in the 3,000 kilo range as a trainer. Talk to us where it fits in the spectrum of training the next generation of pilots.
Yes, the M-345 is specifically designed as a basic trainer. As you were mentioning, it's a brand new aircraft, introducing meeting all the new requirements for a trainer aircraft. That is including not only flying qualities, performance, but also general system related issues, ejection seats, new generation ejection seats, new avionics, flight management system, state-of-the-art touch screen with a head-up display. And so it is, the aircraft has got a large capability for training. It's a benign aircraft to fly, but it's an aircraft being not turboprop, but rather a jet engine, being capable to be used at the right-hand side of the speed envelope, namely next to 400 knots, 0.8 Mach, and is making basically this aircraft very suitable for basic trainer. As a basic trainer, you can actually do ab initio training if needed, given how easy is the aircraft to handle. But on the other end, because of the performance and flying qualities, it can be used also in what we call the Phase 3A part of the training, after the basic training.
And when it comes to the flying qualities, as you guys were engineering this jet, what are the flying qualities that you guys were seeking? Because you want it to be benign, but at the same time you want it to be challenging for a new generation of pilots to cause them to problem solve. Talk to us about what some of the features you have in here that makes it also a challenging aircraft to fly when it needs to be challenging.
Yeah, of course. Our main goal was to make an aircraft which is easy to fly, because it is mainly a basic trainer. So the aircraft can be flown as low as 80 knots basically, and that is good for when you handle the aircraft around the takeoff and landing circuit. And you can stall the aircraft, you can easily recover it, you can spin the aircraft. It is really important that you can spin an aircraft because you have to expose students to weird, things that an aircraft can do.
The disorientation that goes with it.
Disorientation and understanding what's going on and applying the proper recovery procedure if needed. This aircraft is capable to do this. But on the other end, if you don't do this, you can just release controls and it is clear itself from the stall or the spin without actually having the pilot in the loop. So it's really a safe aircraft to handle. This is on one side. This is for I would say, the basic training role that the aircraft has got. On the other hand, we have an aircraft, because of its architecture, because of being a jet aircraft, with an excellent thrust-weight ratio, which is in the range of plus 0.5, and is making the aircraft go as fast as 380 knots on the deck, without descending, and roughly 0.6 Mach low level. This is making the aircraft being somewhat representative of what is the speed range where you use fighters. So it is allowing air forces to initially train pilots that are meant to be fast jet pilots. That is making allowing the air forces to mix properly the use of M345 in the pipeline together with M346 or M346 like platforms to get their pilots properly as frontline fighters.
What's the case though to be made that there are those who say that a new generation of turboprops, which are very docile to handle, don't necessarily have the qualities that sometimes turboprops had, the negative prop forces and everything that go with it, that those are actually a more economical solution, that a turboprop is as good to train people in jets. Are you offering a counter message to that there is an advantage for a jet to be training a jet?
Yes, our message is our aircraft is a very compact and light aircraft, and because of this, and because of the fact that it's got a very efficient high bypass ratio turbofan, the cost associated to the use of this aircraft is comparable to high-end, what we call high-performance turboprop. And because it's a real jet rather than a jet-like, it's much simpler because you don't have to add all the features that, of course, this aircraft has to have to make this aircraft jet-like. So the chance that we've got a maintenance problem, or the jet inefficient, is somewhat better than them, because their complexity is they are much more complex than what this aircraft is. So when we talk about the cost of using this aircraft, they are comparable, but on the other end, our aircraft can be used to exploit a greater part of the training envelope, and that means that we can download some of the training events that are normally performed on the next trainer before you go to the frontline fighters. Further to this, if you want to use an all-through solution, like you want to use the basic trainer to go through the frontline fighters, something that many air forces are talking about today, these aircraft are allowing you to download much more training sorties from the frontline fighters, because we have an edge on speed with respect to high-end turboprop aircraft, and that is overall making the training much more economical when we compare it to what it is possible with our competitors.
And how does this play into a virtual constructive training environment? Because everybody is looking at how the aircraft is actually fitting into a broader training portfolio that includes a lot more simulator time before you even get into a cockpit. How does this whole package fit into it? Because I know that on the 346, it's a much higher end, that's an advanced jet trainer, it's a much higher end syllabus and curriculum that's a part of.
Yeah, this is something that we started to develop lately, I would say, and we initially were thinking that ETTS, Embedded Tactical Training Simulation, would have been not so cost effective to develop in this aircraft, because M346 has got, for example, or M346 like aircraft has got the performance not to get negative training into the pilots. In order to make simulation work properly, you also have to have performance. If you try to, for example, launch an AMRAAM, is much different to launch it at 0.9 Mach than 0.6 Mach. So we think that, for example, it's useless to do such an experience on an M345 like aircraft, because this would be a negative training for the pilot. That's something that you would have to take care of when you get into the lift aircraft or even in the frontline fighters. But then many air forces, they started to talk about an all-through solution to get from basic to the frontline fighters.
And just for our audience, LIF is a lead-in fighter, so that's the high-end training system that goes into the fighter.
So at the end of the day, since we had such a wonderful avionics system, including 2 mission computers, a lot of computing capability, 3MFD touch screen also, an embedded flight management system that would also allow you, pilot to go, meant to proceed with an helicopter or transport training pipeline. Such a big capability, we decided at the end to introduce ETTS also on the M345, because you can actually being our performance not so bad when you compare it to fighters, and even when you compare, furthermore, if you compare it with high-end turboprop, why don't we use that performance to support the ETTS in a proper way that you can actually really perform a very nice what we call phase 3A advanced part of the training that would allow to download some of the events from the next either frontline fighter or leading fighter trainer aircraft that would allow our customer to save their money.
And what else is there in this size class? I'm racking my brain and I'm trying to think of what else exists in this space that's like this.
You're talking about platforms?
Yeah.
Platforms of our competitors, you mean?
Well, I'm looking at everything else has a propeller on it, and I'm trying to think of anything else that's in this size that has a jet on it.
Well, we think at the moment there is no aircraft that is comparable to this. So when you see the whole package, including the size, the thrust-to-weight ratio, so meaning the airframe to engine integration, which is making us much more performing than other comparable aircraft, and then the avionics and general system package. I think there is no comparison nowadays at this moment.
Quirino, thanks very much. Best of luck on the program.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.